All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order today's Thursday, September 23rd meeting of the Missoula Board of County Commissioners. We acknowledge that this event today takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any public announcements today? Well, if anyone is interested, later this afternoon in Superior, Montana at the courthouse of Mineral County, they will be having an open house / public hearing to discuss the possibility of joining the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. So if you're in Mineral County later today and are looking for a good time, stop in at the Mineral County Courthouse and let them know what you think about restoring passenger rail service to southern Montana. Any other public announcements? Okay, how about any public comment on items not on the agenda? This would be the time in the meeting where if you are in the Sophie Moise room in the Missoula County Courthouse, you can come on up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and talk to us what's on your mind, as long as it's not something that's already on the agenda. If you are joining us via Microsoft Teams or on the telephone, if you're on Teams, please raise your hand, use the little raise hand function. We'll call on you in the order in which you raise your hand. If you're on the phone, hit *6 and we will take you as you introduce yourself that way. *6 to be unmuting yourself, that is. Any public comment on items not on today's agenda? Okay, and one additional point, if you're here to comment on anything on the agenda today, please be as succinct as possible, be respectful, and I think that's all for housekeeping. Our current claims list, this would be claims received as of September 1st, 2021 to September 14th, 2021 by the Commissioner's Office, total $4,560,475.45. We have 5 public hearings today. We will take these in order. For each public hearing, we'll open with a staff report. If applicable, it will be followed by a report or comments from the applicant or applicant's representative. We will then take public comment. We'll have questions from the commission, motion, discussion, and a vote. So with that, I'd like to open a public hearing on a resolution in support of housing, and it has listed Chris Lonsberry here. I'm not sure if Commissioner Slotnick wants to speak to this also, but I will leave it up to the two of you, our CAO Chris Lonsberry or Commissioner Josh Slotnick.
How about if Chris brings this forward and then I'll give my little 2 cents.
Excellent. You will offer the applicant, be the applicant's representative, if you will. Okay, Chris is in a very autumn-like setting today.
Well, it is the second day of fall. Yesterday was our first. So good afternoon, Commissioners. So this resolution, again, comes as part of our issues or chance to address issues around housing and homelessness that's occurring in Missoula County. And as we all know, there are significant pressures occurring in that space as we move forward. And so the hope of this resolution is that it sets a firm commitment of the county to work to address those issues. It does not specifically call out the methods that we will use for this, and the reason for that is because those are varied across the space that we're dealing with. We're dealing with everything from folks who are unhoused to just the really difficult housing market, and we wanted this just to reflect that firm commitment, though, of the commission and of the county to work in that space. And I would let Josh add on to that.
Thanks, Chris. You said that really well. All I would add here is that this has been open for a little while, so we've been able to receive some public comment and have heard loud and clear from people who want this issue addressed, and yet it's so tricky because, especially when we're talking about folks who are unhoused right now, no one wants any of it near them, and I totally get that. This is a really tricky thing to deal with. I do want to bring up that when we're talking about building things for unhoused folks in terms of site placement, which is what people are most interested in, we did have our staff run through a rigorous process looking at land owned by the city and county, and then cross checking to see if that land is close to services that people actually need. Is that land livable? Could we are there services nearby, utilities that could make those spaces possible? And it becomes a pretty thin selection fairly quickly. We are committing ourselves to working on this, not to solving it. Those are two different things, and we will learn as we go. That's what I got.
Thanks, Chris. I'd like to open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment on the resolution? Any public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Thanks, Josh. You put a lot of sweat equity into this. This is a good piece of work. I think it sets the policy framework for a lot of other things that we might do going forward, and we did not have this framework in place previously. So I'm glad to see that this is coming before us.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So often we hear, why aren't you doing anything about this this intractable problem? And so this is something that we can do.
So I would entertain a motion.
Well, I move that the board approve a resolution in support of housing.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks, Chris.
good piece of work there, thank you. Our next item brought to us by Karen Baldridge. Karen, come on up to the podium here. Karen and I worked together in a previous life in the world of historical research and imaging documents back in the day, but it's good to have you again with us, Karen. Today we have Missoula Rural Fire District annexation petitions. This is always a juicy item. We wait longingly for these between sessions. So Karen, bring us up to speed.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Karen Baldridge, Deputy Clerk and Recorder. A petition to annex land into the Missoula Rural Fire District has been submitted to our office, to the Clerk and Recorder. The property to be annexed is Tract B1 of Certificate of Survey 6421, located in Section 29, Township 14 North, Range 19 West, Missoula County, Montana, located at 8201 Dark Horse Lane, Missoula, Montana. We've certified that the petition has been signed by the property owner, who represents at least 40% of the acreage and 40% of the taxable value of the property to be annexed. And the annexation has been approved by the Board of Trustees for the Missoula Rural Fire District. And a notice of hearing has been published twice in the Missoulian. And this petition is now ready for your decision.
Excellent. Thanks, Karen. Is there any public comment on the petitions for annexation? Okay, seeing.
As the landowner.
Oh, yes. Could you please?
If you have any questions for me.
Please introduce yourself again. And I'm sorry if I missed your name.
No problem. My name is Kelly Carmel, and I'm the owner of the subject property that she just did a very nice job of describing.
Okay, and just to be crystal clear, you want to be annexed into the fire district?
Yes, I have a situation of owning 20 acres. Oddly, we discovered that 10 of those acres are in the rural fire district, 10 were not, and the dividing line runs right through my house.
There you go.
So half
So
the house
on
burns
advice
and
of the
half
fire
doesn't.
Yeah, on advice of Rural Fire, we've gone through this annexation process to add the approximately 8 to 10 acres into the rural fire district so it's consistent throughout the property. And it also will enable me to have one geocode and one tax bill for the property.
Great, that sounds like a prudent idea. Any other public comment out there on this, on these petitions? Okay, seeing none. Questions from the commission? Or a motion?
Sounds like I would get some language here. I would move we annex this property into the rural fire district.
Save Kelly Carmel some headache.
Yeah, putting out the fire in half the house will be difficult.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I just realized my microphone's not on, but now it's on.
Okay, just for the record, since the microphone was off, Commissioner Vero, did you make the motion or second it?
I
made
believe
the
I
motion.
seconded.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that was a second from Commissioner Rivera. Okay, we're good. It's done. Thanks, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public hearing, which I'll open, is related to Community Development Block Grant CARES Act grant. Cindy Kennedy. Grant applications, I should say.
Yes. Good afternoon. I am trying to share my screen, and I don't know if it's working.
We're looking at what looks like the first slide.
Yep, we can see it.
You're seeing it?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Can you see from the beginning the CDBG CARES public hearing?
Yes.
You can see that. Fabulous, because I cannot tell on my end what you can see and what you cannot. So good afternoon, I am Cindy Kennedy, Grants Administrator with the Community and Planning Services Department. Missoula County wishes to respond to the Montana Department of Commerce request for applications for Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funding, also known as CDBG-CV. The CARES Act allocated this funding to states through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. CDBG-CV funds must be used for activities that prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. And 70% of those CDBG-CV funds must be used for activities that benefit low and moderate income individuals. And of that 70%, projects must serve communities or clients where at least 51% of the community members or clients have low to moderate incomes. And as part of the eligibility criteria for this grant application, Missoula County must hold a public hearing, which is why we're here today, to allow for citizen participation. Montana received a little over $10 million in CDBG.
Cindy, are you intending to advance any slides, or?
Yes, I am. You're not seeing it?
We're just seeing the first screen.
Okay. Sorry about that. Let me see. Something different here. For some reason, I'm not seeing it on my screen. Are you seeing anything now?
Yep, just the first image.
Still the title slide, yeah.
Cindy?
Yeah.
I think if you go to the main Teams screen, you'll see an arrow. I think there might have been an update, and there's an arrow. It says 1 of 7, and then an arrow to the right underneath the title slide. So I think you might be able to advance it within the Teams meeting, and not within the PowerPoint program. Does that make sense?
Look at that.
Oh,
Yeah, now it's moving.
Tearing through it.
Sorry about that. All right, I think that's where I left off. Thank you, everyone, for your patience, and thanks, Anne, for helping. So Montana received a little over $10 million in CDBG-CV funding, and applications are due October 7th, 2021. All counties and 3 entitlement cities, to include Missoula, Billings, and Great Falls, are eligible applicants. Tribes and nonprofits are not eligible applicants, but can partner with their local government and be a subrecipient. So the Montana Department of Commerce has determined CDBG-CV funds can be used for public facilities, public services, and housing and homelessness assistance projects. So the purpose of this public hearing is to obtain public comments on Missoula County's intentions to apply for CDBG-CV funding to support eligible activities. After extensive outreach and careful consideration, Missoula County intends to submit 1 CDBG-CV application to the Montana Department of Commerce for public services to be performed by Missoula Food Bank and Community Center. And if successful, this will result in a sub-award to the Missoula Food Bank. So the food bank is seeking $317,626 in CDBG CV funding to support expanded services at Lolo, Bonner, and Futura Manufactured Home Community due to COVID-19. And they can date this funding back to March 2020, as is allowed, and through June 2024. So the funding sought will support personnel and food costs for these expanded services. And I know that Jessica, a representative from Missoula Food Bank, is here to answer any questions or field any comments or provide more detail. The county intends to just submit one CDBG CV application for the Missoula Food Bank. At this time, we welcome questions or comments related to the needs of low to moderate income community members and your thoughts on how the proposed Missoula Food Bank CDBG CV application will meet those needs. And if providing a comment or asking a question, please state your first and last name for the record.
Cindy, before we get rolling here, and I should know this because it was only 4 hours ago, but didn't we discuss this morning, or some aspect of this?
So this morning, you all considered the signature from the chair for a resolution to apply and a certification for application. So that is not the public comment or the public hearing. That was just due diligence in terms of documents that need to be included with the application.
It seems an odd process. Normally that would come out of whatever the action is from a public hearing. But if that's the it's rather bizarre.
That has a lot to do with the timing of everything.
Okay. In any event, any public comment on this before we take questions from the commission?
Public comment, or whether or not to accept public comment?
And Cindy, how are you expecting us to take action today, or how long will this comment period be open?
So the comment period, we had 2 legal ads published, both in the Missoulian and one in the Pathfinder, 2 in the Missoulian. We were accepting comments up till today. The application is due on the 7th of October, so this will be the end of our comment period. You do not need to take any action. This is just an opportunity for citizen participation.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. So any public comment? Anyone out there in Microsoft Team world or on the phone who would like to comment? Okay, questions from the commission or comments? Yeah.
This is a question for Jessica. Could you describe what you all are going to be doing with this money, or what sort of activities you've already done and going to cover with this money? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Josh. We are going to, so back in March of 2020, we started some specific out-of-county intervention for food insecurity experienced by people as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, what we really experienced anecdotally and also with data is that as families, families outside of city limits are farther away from services and just experience particular barriers to food access. And so in these 3 communities in Bonner, we have had a bi-monthly distribution. We take food out to one of the faith-based communities there, and we do direct distribution to families. That's between 30 and 50 families every other week. Similarly with Lolo, with kind of enhanced services in that community, increased safety protocol. We do have a satellite in Lolo, but have increased our staff support there, as well as providing some different options for food. And then with the Futura Mobile Home Park, we have a mobile bus that goes out there and serves groceries during the summer months when there are particular barriers for families with kids out there. So this request would help to reimburse the food bank for costs of those programs from March of 2020 through June 30 of this year, as is allowed, as Cindy noted. And then it would allow us to, those services in both Bonner and Futura, grocery services, were discontinued at the end of June, just due to funding availability. And so this would allow us to restart those services in Bonner and be able to provide those services out in Futura through June of 2024.
Thanks. Other questions? Cindy, have you received any comment on this? It looks like it's a fairly thin selection of comment today, but has anyone else commented on this?
No, not to my knowledge. No.
Well, for the record, Dave Strohmeyer thinks it's a good idea. Since we're not voting on it, apparently.
This is Juanita Vero.
Same over here.
Okay.
3 positive comments.
Yeah, 3 thumbs up from the Sophie Moise room. Okay, well, thanks, Jessica. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, both of you.
And I think we've done our due diligence here. So we will move on in the agenda to our 4th public hearing. This is on the adoption of a resolution to rezone the property at 9950 Long Acres Lane. And let's see, Matt, I'm assuming you are bringing us the staff report today.
I am.
Okay, very good.
Just realized I don't have a microphone. Sorry. Oh, it's okay. Thank you. So. All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Heimel with Missoula County Community Planning Services. So today is the public hearing on a final resolution to adopt rezoning for lots 1 through 6 of Long Addition number 2, phases 1 through 3. And this is a rezoning proposal from Jack Long Enterprises LLC, represented by Jamie Erbacher with WGM Group. So here is a closer aerial image of the property. This proposal is to rezone the property from CC2 General Commercial to CI1 Light Industry. So currently, you can see it's darker blue, mostly CC2, proposed to go to, like I said, CI1 Light Industry. It was reviewed for rezoning criteria, and it met all the criteria, and we also see that it is within the industrial center land use designation. So this proposal went to the Planning Board on July 20th. It was voted for approval of the request. A resolution of intention was adopted to rezone the property on August 12th. We did post notice that that resolution was adopted, Resolution 2021-090. We have not received any comments since that publication, nor did we receive comments leading up to either of the initial hearings. So staff is recommending approval of the resolution to adopt rezoning today.
Thank you. Jamie, anything you'd like to add?
Nothing additional from me, but if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there any public comment on the proposed rezoning? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Questions?
Well, and the activity that is being proposed?
Oh, yeah. What's being proposed at this site, or what exists there now, and what is going to exist there in the future?
So as you can
Yes.
see, oh, sorry,
Sorry,
Jamie.
Matt.
All right, so as you can see on the aerial imagery here, there's a warehouse there. I believe the intent is partly to put in a distribution facility, which is currently not compliant with CC2 General Commercial. Or I should say a proposal would not be compliant, and then if it were light industry, then a distribution facility would be a permitted use. And there are other vacant lots as well that could have light industry development.
Go ahead, Josh.
Matt, could you pull back and just, so we can, I'm sure you did originally. Yeah, I want to get myself situated here as to where exactly this is.
So here is the you can see my mouse, that is the Highway 93 and Interstate 90 interchange. So we're in the southwest portion of the Y. Alita Drive right here.
Great. Got it. Thank you.
Is just to the north there some sort of, well, isn't there a dental manufacturing?
And we did some rezoning for her a
yeah,
couple years ago.
somewhere
Right.
out there. But anyway, it's not relevant to this. But. Okay, any public comment on this? Any more public comment or any additional questions from the commission?
Well, I appreciate how clean and straightforward it is. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jamie.
it's very helpful that it's consistent with what's supposed to be there.
Matt, do you have a motion for us?
I do.
We can always count on Matt for
I'll
a motion,
appreciate
so
that.
there it is.
Is it my turn? Oh. I move that the resolution to rezone portions of lots 1 through 6 of Long Addition Number 2, phases 1 through 3, be approved based on the findings of fact and conclusions of the law contained in the staff report.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
And our fifth and final item for today on our list of public hearings is our final public hearing on American Rescue Plan Act funds that we have received from the federal government. So Chris Lonsberry, would you like to fill us in here or recap for us where we've been and where we plan on going?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioners. So just a quick reminder, we're here to talk about the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA funding. What we are looking at is funding to cover through fiscal year 2022, which started on July 1st. So the ARPA funding is divided into 5 categories. The first category is support for the public health response, and as of course a reminder, which I know everyone is well aware, we are still in the midst of a pandemic, so some of the funding will continue to support that. The second category is addressing negative economic impact, replacement for public sector revenue loss, premium pay for essential workers, and water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure projects. Missoula County is looking to fund ARPA projects in categories 1, 2, and 5, and I'll give a quick overview again of what those projects are. So in the support for public health response, we're looking at enhancing the mental health services at the detention facility. Again, this is a congregate setting. Mental health has obviously been dramatically impacted by COVID-19. The additional funding there over a 2-year period is $473,355. The next item we're looking at is an expansion to the animal control facility. That facility, as you'll recall, needed to bring in a temporary space similar to a modular classroom for staff due to the small staff area associated with that building. So this would allocate up to $400,000 towards expanding that space, both for additional space for animals, but also additional space for staff to allow them to appropriately socially distance during the continued pandemic, but also for future needs. The NACO prescription drug identification document program, this is part of our housing and homeless initiatives. This money, approximately $7,500, would be money that would be used to help people obtain identification documents they need, things like Social Security cards, birth certificates, state-issued IDs, to be able to allow them to access services. We have funding for an additional position in the epidemiological, and I apologize, that word is hard for me to say, unit that is at the health department, which again is helping to track COVID-19 cases across Missoula County and helping to provide vital information and making good public health decisions both by the public, our hospitals, and other partners. Probably our lowest cost item is a mobile air ventilation system of $677 for the detention facility. This is a positive pressure ventilation system that can be used when they have to clean a pod that may have had a COVID positive patient in it. The next is funding for our relationship violence services program at $280,000. As one can imagine, during the period, in particular when we had quite a few businesses shut down, we saw an increase in domestic violence services, and so this funding goes to help replace some lost revenue in that department and continue to allow them to provide services to the public. And the largest item that we have here is a set-aside of up to $5.8 million for continued health department COVID-19 response. That will go to help fund things that are not covered by federal funding. Right now, the largest expense there is the identification and contact tracing of positive patients and also folks who have been exposed to COVID-19. So in this category, we're looking at up to $7,040,000. The next section is other items to address the COVID-19 response, and I've titled this area System Upgrade. So two of these together are health department and detention facility upgrades to their heating, venting, and air conditioning systems. Both the health department, which is a building from the 1970s, has had significant challenges around making sure that we can provide adequate ventilation in the facility for staff and the public who's working in it. So this would allow them to replace that system. The detention facility, again, is a congregate setting where we need to be able to increase our ability to adequately ventilate that facility. This would be about $1 million, a little over $1 million, which would also add some advanced filtration for that facility, again, to hopefully help isolate should there be exposures or outbreaks of that. The next one I think is one that has caught not necessarily folks' attention, but might be a question for folks. We have an increase to our Fairgrounds Enterprise Wi-Fi system. So that is the public and employee Wi-Fi system that is used in all of our county buildings. As folks might recall, the Fairgrounds has served a vital role during the COVID-19 outbreak, being our first testing center and also being a point of vaccination distribution in the community, and this will allow staff to more fully utilize that space and make sure that they can address the needs around providing those two services there. Next is another enhancement to our detention facility. This is to repair some secure doors and ports in the detention facility, and again, this allows us to better isolate folks who may have been exposed or who do have COVID-19 who are in our congregate setting at the detention facility. As folks can imagine, just like everyone is seeing, we're seeing continued attempts to penetrate Missoula County's network from bad actors, and so there's a request from IT for a little over $10,000 to upgrade the firewall that is used by the public on our enterprise Wi-Fi network when they're visiting our facilities. Next is the Fairgrounds Floriculture Building heating and air conditioning. This facility was used for out-of-school care by the YMCA for childcare. This will improve that system to again make it available to the YMCA should there be a need for remote learning opportunities again in the public. Last three items here. The first is the ARPA Grants Administrator. This position would be in our Community and Planning Services Division in their grants section. This would be to help us administer both the ARPA funds that we have already received, but also to allow us to adequately apply for funding that might be available at either the state or federal level. We have approximately $60,000 request from the library to assist with security. Of course, the library has been heavily utilized. It's a beautiful new facility. This would help to just address some of the security needs that they've had throughout the pandemic. And finally, in this category, we have a request for an additional employee in the Information Services Department, specifically, again, attempting to address those cybersecurity threats that we have seen on the uptick. So in the systems upgrade area, we're looking at approximately $2.73 million of ARPA funding. Last category for us here is the next category, not the last category, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. We're looking at using approximately $40,000 for the Lewis and Clark wastewater system. This system is out in the Clinton area. It's one of our most low-income areas that's serviced by a community system. This would increase and enhance that system and do some much-needed maintenance out there. The Lolo Water District, looking at improvements that would install redundancy and allow that system to be able to isolate and shut off pieces of the system without impacting the whole Lolo community. That project will cost approximately $939,000. Two system upgrades to water systems, Sunset West and Elmar Water Systems, $154,000 to help replace aging equipment there. And then up to $2.8 million to match funding that has been allocated by the state through House Bill 632. That House Bill 632 has a competitive side and a non-competitive gas tax formula distribution. This is the match that's required to be able to access those dollars. So all told, approximately $4 million in water, sewer, and broadband projects for Missoula County. And then last section that we're really working hard on, and this was the first item that was up for your public hearings today, working in that housing and mental health space. For housing and homelessness support, we're looking at a total of $2.5 million. That funding breaks down to the Poverello Center has received a federal grant that will allow them to expand their care for homeless veterans. We're looking to help them match that grant with an additional $833,000 in ARPA funding. We have a request for $100,000 to go towards emergency winter shelter. Missoula County contributes every year to help support the emergency winter shelter program, but we saw a significant uptick this last year with the pandemic and the need for the Poverello Center to have reduced capacity again in a congregate setting, so some additional funding for that program. We're looking to set aside $1.5 million for some of our housing and homelessness initiatives that we have going on, including one that you heard about just a few weeks ago, or just earlier last week, as we look to address some of our unhoused neighbors here in Missoula County. And then Missoula Aging Services, which provides the Meals on Wheels program, has asked for some additional funding. They have seen an uptick in the number of folks who are requesting that service as folks who have been unable to go out and secure those, and so $110,000 would go to support those food programs run by Missoula Aging Services in the Meals on Wheels section. And then in the mental health space, we're looking to set aside approximately $1 million. Part of that will go to increase the hours and number of responses available by our new mobile support crisis team. They've been doing outstanding work during their 8-month pilot. This would allow them to expand that program. That's a $368,000 request. And then for additional mental health services and support, as we continue to expand the ability of Missoula County to respond to those in partnership with the city and other partners here in town, we're looking to set aside $632,000 to be able to assist in those efforts. So all told, Missoula County is looking at approximately $17,330,000 in requested funding over this next fiscal year and carrying into the first part of the following fiscal year, but we will have a separate hearing when we cross fiscal years. And so with that, I'll stop sharing my screen, and we would love public comment and input, and then at the end of that, I would ask that you close the public hearing for our ARPA.
All right, thanks, Chris. And will that be followed by a motion to adopt? Go ahead.
So that will come to you at an administrative meeting, similar to the way we do our regular budget adoption, but I'd ask that you close the public comment period. And I should note that at least to date, as of this morning when I checked in with Violet and Kyla, thanks to Ann Hughes for doing that for me, we had not received any public comment on this item from our last hearing.
Thanks, Chris. Is there any public comment on the proposed use of ARPA funds in fiscal year 22? No public comment. Okay, I will close the public hearing, but in closing the public hearing, there will, in somewhat ironic fashion, folks can still comment up until the very moment that we actually take a vote on this in admin. Questions, Josh or Juanita, or comments?
Just a comment that as Chris is reciting these things, I want people who may check this out to know that these decisions came after lots of deliberation, lots of comment and commentary and discussion with our staff and with our partners at the city and in the nonprofit world. And we vetted all kinds of ideas before landing on these things. It doesn't quite come across because Chris just gave us the information as he was supposed to do and did great that way. And Chris really led us through this long and arduous process, but I personally feel really good about where we landed, and we landed here because we had a long and arduous process of discussion and as to how we can use these kind of once-in-a-generation funds.
Strategic.
Strategic, it's a great word, Juan.
And even with this opportunity, the needs and desires of the community outstrip the money that we have, but it will be put to good use and will make a huge difference in the lives of Missoula County residents, I believe.
And try to keep it to one word, strategic.
Yeah, some of these infrastructure monies set us up for the next wave of tens of thousands of people living in the county. If we're not for these water and sewer projects, we wouldn't be able to build the houses people would require because the infrastructure is not there.
Or property tax would be needing to be significantly jacked up in order to
Yeah, it
accommodate that.
would be untenable.
Okay, thanks, Chris, for all of your hard work on this and all
Thank
the
you.
other staff members who have helped. Do we know what admin meeting this will come before us at?
So this will be on your admin next week, the 30th.
Very good.
Last day of the month, great.
There we go.
Okay, is there any other business to come before the commission today? Deputy County Attorney John Hart, anything?
No, Commissioner?
Okay, that was a no. With that, we will be adjourned.